May have everybody's attention that's in the gallery. First of all, let me introduce myself. Didn't wear a name tag. I'm Katie Sandy. I'm the chair of the Society of Washington Artists Spring Show on there, and I want to welcome you to Camas Gallery, and particularly want to thank Marquita Call, who's behind the desk over there, owner of Camas Gallery, for allowing us to hang the winners of our show in here. This is our president, Rick Jones. He'll be helping me hand out awards pretty soon on there. Also, a big thank you to Pam Ritchie Curtis from Bellflower Farm, who provided the flowers for us. So the thank yous that we need to, and of course, thank you to the committee that helped me put this all together there. I don't think very many of them are here. Alan Oliver is over here. And we have Debbie Berger, who put together the slideshow over there and the book for us. She did it with something new we haven't done before, and I think that's very good. And also Ann Mathiasen, Patricia Nevius, and Patricia Romines were the people on the show. For those of you who don't know, SWA, or Society of Washington Artists, is the oldest art organization in Southwest Washington. I think 60 years or so.
60 years.
60 years or so we've been in operation, and we have been putting on shows a couple times a year. Most of that time, up until the pandemic, we were doing big shows with 200 entries at the Water Resources Building, in-person shows and things. We haven't been able to do that. We weren't able to do it last year and again this year. And so we've got a combination here, which we hope is working thanks to Camas Gallery. We have an online show too that you can see. We had 182 entries from 73 different artists. SWA shows are open to anyone, not just members. So we were happy to do that. And so we're pleased to have the winners here. You can look at them closer. We're going to be videotaping this too. And first, we're going to have the judge talk about why she selected each of the awards. Then we will go back, for those of you who do that, and present you with your awards. So it is my pleasure to introduce our judge, who is Karen Madsen, and she is chair of ArtStruck, which is an art organization in Southwest Washington, supports the arts, and probably most known for the open studios they've done for 7 years. Couldn't do it last year, but we're going to do it again this year. She has a background in both business and art, and a degree from Masters in Studio Art from the New York University. She's exhibited in New York and on the West Coast, and it is a pleasure to have her do this. To judge our show and to tell you about why she selected that. So let me introduce you to Karen Madsen, our judge. Thank you.
Well, this was a very interesting experience. I think everyone who has ever looked at art online knows that it's challenging to even know what the art really looks like in person. And I found it to be both challenging for the artist, for the viewers, and as juror of the show. So I wanted to still keep sort of the process I normally use in looking at work, from looking at work in museums or in galleries. I wanted to take a similar kind of view of looking at this work. And like Katie said, it's 182 pieces. So and online, if you looked at it, you see everything looks the same. It's all square formatted, and then you have to go through and you have to look at them individually, and then you can do the full screen look. So when I go into a gallery or a museum, or I usually walk in and I stand in the middle of the room and I just do a very slow turn. I look at the work, things that are compelling, I go to first, and then I make a decision on other pieces that I'd like to go look at. when I approached the judging or jurying of the show, I kind of used the same system where for 3 different days, 3 different times, I'd look at all of the images, I'd look at the ones that really, go through the individual, and then the ones that really were compelling, I'd go and do a little bit more in-depth look of the work on full screen. The other thing is that I would also make my decisions on paper, but I wouldn't look at them the next day or the next day. So finally, after the 3rd time through, I was able to look at all the numbers I had chosen, gone back, looked at the work, and finally made the decision. And then I hoped when I showed up, I was going to be okay with all the decisions I made. And I have to say, I was. I came over yesterday to look at the work, and I was pleased to know that it was a good solution. I'm an abstract painter, and I also realized that online is very, very hard to be able to really appreciate abstract work. I mean, you just have to, you know, it all kind of, you can't really see the subtleties and what really is compelling about abstract. So what I primarily did is looked at the formal elements of making a good painting, and used that as my judgment for first looking. I looked at subject matter and how pieces kind of fit within this contemporary dialogue we're having right now in art history. What makes a piece look like it was made today versus looking like it's something 50 years ago. And then also looking at the media, how it was constructed and the level of craft. The other thing I did is, I think all of us know about the happy accident. And as viewers of art, there's nothing more exciting than to find a happy accident. But often what makes really good, lasting, creative art is intent and being aware of what it is you're making. So, while some of the work I saw were clearly beautiful, happy accidents, I refrained from making those choices. I'm sure everyone here is like, well, why would you choose these works? And I think everyone who makes art and then puts it into a show or to a call for art knows that it's pretty subjective. It's the view of and the kind of history and the way the juror looks at work. And I think on a whole, all of the work was really clearly good work, and I think everyone should feel very happy with, you know, the work that they're doing. And, you know, there's nothing better, especially in a time when going to the studios where we sometimes find our solace during the times of the last year and a half. So,
do you want to do them by category? Start with the oil and acrylic and the honorable mentions. You want the list?
Sure.
I'm sure you want the list. So
I'll look at
oil and acrylic. Start with oil and acrylic, honorable mention. Yes.
Okay.
And I think
Steve's.
Yeah. It's this one and this one, right?
Right.
Okay. These two paintings are really good. They're much better on the wall than they are on the internet. And I was wondering about how this one was going to show and be here. And the thing is, it's really good. The way the use of the medium, the use of the paint, the use of the subject matter, and it looks very fresh. It doesn't have, it's not overworked, but it's also, it really looks like something made now. And the subject matter is very interesting, but the subject matter is really not the dominant element of this painting. I think really the dominant element is the handling of the paint and the formal elements of color And I think the scale, that's the other thing about the problem with the internet is you can't see scale. And scale is pretty important to looking at work. And I think that the handling of these really brilliant areas and just this kind of emotional tensity of it, it was a good painting. I really liked it. And I kept being drawn to this painting. And I think this is also a case where very, very, very contemporary. Subject matter, you know that there's a narrative there that could have a lot of humor. The handling of the paint is really very good. I mean, this is clearly an artist who understands how to make a painting. And I think what's interesting is in the photograph, I couldn't see, that it was framed. But so there was this kind of floating of objects on a surface plane that I really kind of liked, that tension of how everything kind of just floated around. Now that it's framed, you can see that stuff is going off the edge, which is, kind of what makes formal Western painting now, that the edge, that things live outside the edge. So I think the color is great on this painting. I think I want to know more, and actually I want to know more of this artist's work because it's really quite good.
Now, third place in oil and acrylic is up high.
Yeah, this is an interesting painting. I actually know, I've seen her work before, so I know she's a really good painter, and it's great to see that she's doing something that's dealing with memory. And I think subject matter-wise, I think all of us know what it's like to get in an airplane and to suddenly be above the clouds, going out to that bright sun, and the contrail. What makes, I think, this very contemporary and why it works so well is that diagonal kind of line breaking the picture plane. And there's no apology there. It's not faded or diffused in any way. So, and it is oil, so, oil takes a little time. And I think the choices she made in finishing that painting was quite good.
The second place oil and acrylics right down there.
This one?
Yep.
Yes. And this is a case where scale is really important. I am really happy this is a tiny painting comparative to big paintings. I think there's an intimacy in the conversation the viewer is having with this, since this is really a grand space, but he's making a choice to be choosing a scale that brings that giant space down. And you actually have to go up to the painting to really sense that space. I think it's masterfully minimal in its need to do anything more than just give that initial impression. It's a very pretty little painting.
First place oil and acrylics.
This one.
Right.
Yeah, these were all, actually, all the paintings were really accomplished. And this one, what I really liked about was this kind of movement. I mean, that figure is certainly moving through space. That figure's got some real energy embedded in that person. But the surface is all very speckled. It's all very, almost on the surface. It has this kind of interesting depth of keeping that patterned surface with a certain amount of tension to that figure. And I think we all can kind of imagine being there and seeing that kind of to someone ahead of us. And I think I didn't know how it was going to be framed, but I will give this person a little bit extra because I think it's framed really nicely. I think this is a painting that people could have in their home and enjoy walking by, especially you know, on a day when it's really gray and cloudy outside.
Okay, next category is the water media, acrylic and
Is it this one?
the common, yeah, Liz, the Search of Light, yeah, no, the two honorable mentions are over here, yeah, the little moth and then the Liz Walker's up here.
These two, yes.
And those are the honorable mentions
Right.
of water media.
And, you know, watercolor is a tricky. I think it's funny that people always think it's the easiest. A lot of people start it, you know, their art exploration in watercolor, and it's got to be the hardest. And many years ago, there was a show of John Marin up at Seattle Art Museum. And John Marin is this artist, if you don't know his work, it was in the middle of the 18th century or 19th century when they would send artists along with explorers to see the Grand Canyon and places like that. And they would work by doing sketches, and it was watercolors and pen sketches. And then they'd take the sketches back to their studios, and they would make these giant paintings, and people would pay money to come in and look at them. And, you know, they had little pictures of people walking around on edges of the Grand Canyon with bears and stuff. But the paintings were okay, but those watercolor sketches that he used were masterful because they were just the right amount of information and ink and paper and color. And that's kind of the real mastery of watercolor. So when you're looking at watercolor, sometimes it's easy to kind of think about the subject more than actually that surface that you're creating. So I thought this one I was compelled by. I wouldn't say if I walked up to it and I didn't know it was watercolor, I wouldn't necessarily know it was, because it could be ink, it could be very thin glazes of acrylic, but I think subject-wise it's quite beautiful and striking, and I think it holds itself very well with its composition. Compositionally, it's quite interesting to see this kind of swirl of color. And this piece, I thought
Did a great job explaining.
she just made kind of this image of figures, and figures can be really, really perfect, and they can be really stiff. And there was in this, the way the tension of the two figures were, the one walking into the other, and then this kind of swirl of pretty muted colors, but that lovely orange coming out. You kind of know the relationship of the two figures. You know what they're doing. And I think it works very well. And you know, I think it's a pleasant painting.
This is the third place.
Oh, this is. I had no real. In my mind, I couldn't imagine the scale of it. And then to come in and see it being this kind of quiet little watercolor. The sky is very active. The sky really captures the beauty of kind of that instant watercolor effect. And I think the fact that this foreground is so richly dark and not trying to be sentimental in any way. And even the boat going off, there's nothing you would say, oh, you know, it's just somebody making a watercolor. I really feel that looking at that painting, scale is perfect, composition works, that red figure in that little boat going off, the fact that they're going away from us creates a certain amount of space. I think it's just a nice little painting.
Second place is behind you there, right there. That's the second place in watercolor.
And then, you know, I went back and forth with this one, and I don't have the same kind of maybe complicated reasonings. There was just something about it that just appealed to me. You know, really, I liked the limited palette. I liked the fact that these grapes are just sitting what looks like on top of maybe even like a lid or something like that, that someone has just ate the best of the grapes and left the others behind. And that the way it kind of comes in from this side, and the relationship, I think, between the shade of ruby red or kind of light red, and then that lovely purple background. I think it just works. You know, I just looked at it and I said, I think it works really well.
First place in watercolor, unfortunately, is way up high.
Yeah, this is the one I really wanted to see too, close by, which I haven't been able to see. But this one I kind of went back and forth with, and finally I looked at it and I said, that's really an interesting painting. I like the fact that the foreground takes up the majority of the painting, and these tiny little activated cows and workers in this farm setting that you would normally think would be the subject matter of a painting, the narrative, it's all kind of back there, like, well, they're all doing something, and then on top of that are these kind of gray vegetation, the trees in the back. I mean, they're just very gray, and there's just the level of space on such a tiny little painting, really. I was expecting it to be a little bigger when I saw it, and I was hoping, I hope sometime I'll be able to see it, you know, so I can look at it in real time. I think the use of those sort of subtle colors is quite nice, and I really do like those activated cows. I mean, I think I'd like to know those cows, you know. So,
okay, our last category was other mediums, any of them there, and the honorable mentions in that are this one and the big one.
So this was the one abstract painting that I could see online that had all of the formal compositional elements were there. I kind of could figure out how it was being built. I could look at these lovely interspersing lines of that white, and there was something about it that I could tell would hold up, you know, even if, depending on the scale, if it were 3 times as big or if it were half as big, the composition was so strong that I knew this was going to succeed as an abstract painting. And when I came to look at it, I liked it even more because you can see these photographic elements. You can see where the paint has been added and over the top. And the collage is not your typical collage. It's not asking you to put together a bunch of disparate elements or images. It's really actually making a solid whole compositional element, and I think it's good. You did a good job. And Leslie's, she did a good job. It's a good painting. It was a series about newspapers. She's a good painter, and I think it was kind of a surprise to see that these bits of rectangular surfaces were some kind of medium, or that, and you couldn't see that on the online, but I think they work, and I think they add a certain spatial relationship between the narrative. I think it was representative of a very contemporary kind of painting, figurative painting, that is happening right now, and I think it works well.
Yeah, third place and another medium is right there in front of you, the big one.
Yeah, this one's very interesting. This is this is colored pencil on Mylar, and so you know, it smudges, so you have to be really good at it. And I think there's also a freshness of just being able to see that kind of use of the colored pencil, which kind of sits on that surface. I like that it's clearly a portrait of someone, but it's handled in a way that is very contemporary, and there's a certain tightness, but at the same time a certain looseness. You know, it's not the expected way of thinking. But I think if you saw this person, you know, if the person walked in right now, you would probably very clearly recognize that person. This is a case also where scale was different, because I'm looking at it smaller, and now when I come in, it's really quite. I mean, it's one of the more larger paintings in the group, or larger in works of art. But I think it works good, and I think by looking at his other work that he submitted, this is where he's working in, and he's found his kind of niche, and I think it's a good one.
Second place is the steer over here.
Yeah, this is graphite, and I think the one of the things that seeing pencil, graphite on paper is, it always is kind of interesting, because we all know that it's got to be hard. But what makes this, I think, so beautiful is the kindness of that bull, that capturing of that image, and you know that bull is huge, but it doesn't, it sits within the picture comfortably, unthreatening, kind, asking you to appreciate the way it looks, and it is really a striking, I think, image. And it's also nicely framed. None of the framing takes away from it, and it's just you just want to look at his eyes. You know, he's clearly a nice guy. Yeah. And I think that the dynamic of the horns and the placement of the bull within the picture frame really adds to that kind of really understanding how you use space to be able to say something about.
Okay, first place in mixed media is down there.
And this one is pen and ink. And I just think it just works, you know. I can't, if I were to look at it, I couldn't say, oh, you know, I think something doesn't work in it. I think it really works. You know, you look at it, and you see this kind of soft landscape that there's a certain menacing quality about it, even though it's not dark. You know, the way the pen moves, these interesting fern fronds, but then there's also something like you're looking through some kind of a veil, you know, because it's so soft. I think the color of that yellow and the color of the sky and how it reflects in the water is really sublime. I think it really works very well, and everything about it. I don't think you know, I would change anything. I think the person should be very happy with it. And it's clear this isn't a happy accident either. I mean, this is an intended piece of art making. And
now, best of show.
Best of show.
Best of show for all the categories.
Yeah. I was right from looking. I was interested, and you know, I think I can't find anything wrong, and I think everything works really well. The orange, the purple, this incredible bits of white, that orange shape there. The scale is such that it could be twice as big and it would still hold up. I think we all can look at it and say, oh, I know what that night was like, you know? It's a little cold, and there's tension in each of the figures that makes them very solid. While the subject is kind of a streetscape, we can all bring our own narrative to the subject. There's nothing that's kind of left out of what a good painting is. So I just think it's a very good painting.
Thank you, Karen. Yes. So now we will actually give people their awards that they have here and try and do them in back. I kind of got them in back order. I think we'll go the same way we did. The honorable mentions in oil and acrylic. One goes to David Cantor. You see here, there he is. Honorable mention. Oh, I got two there.
Bring them up, way up.
Pictures,
Bring them in.
We have to always get pictures.
Yep, get right in there.
Oh, I can't.
Our photographer.
Okay.
Picture, that would look better.
Yeah.
Everybody looks like a
You
bandit.
can take your mask off when you come up here.
Okay, okay.
Both Rick and I have had two vaccines.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you can go. Actually, once you're
Next
getting
honorable
close to
mention
Rex.
is Steve Elliott in oil and acrylic. Steve is here. There he is.
How are you?
Thanks, Steve. Third place in oil and acrylic goes to Julianne Smith. I should be naming Second place goes to Rick Jones right here. We'll do it this way. And first place in oil and acrylics goes to Mel McRobert. There he is.
Okay.
I know she's not here. We'll do the water media next here. Let's see. These are water media here. Honorable mention in water media, Joan Giddens Turley. There's hers.
Not an improvement.
We got you.
We good, Bill?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, third prize in water media goes to Virginia Barber.
Is Virginia?
Is Virginia here? No, we couldn't. I knew the other honorable mention in water media, Liz Walker. I knew she wasn't going to be here, so I didn't pull it out. Second prize in water media, I don't think she's here either. Judith Howard. I thought she told me she wasn't going to be here. And first place in water media, I know she's here. Tao Zhao.
Yes, you do. I'll do yours.
All right, we're into, okay, that's the investor show. All right, other medium, honorable mention.
Katie, Sandy.
And also Leslie Fowles, who I know is not here. I'm pretty sure she's not here. She had foot surgery. And she couldn't be here, she told me. All right, third prize and other medium, Richard Helmick. There he is.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And second place in other mediums goes to Rita Niblock. Is Rita here? I don't know. But know her. And first place in other mediums, Daniel Masterson. Right there. Yeah, got your email that you want to help on shows too. I'm all for that. And now for Best of Show, it's a great pleasure here to present this to Lila Martin.